Welcome to the Political Power Hour with your host, former congressional candidate, retired federal agent, and three-time author, Michael Valardi, highlighting today's political hot topics with the most interesting political candidates in the 2022 election. The most hard-hitting political commentary on the air today. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to tonight's show. It's going to be another great one. As you know, every show we have a tremendous guest. Tonight we have Keith Feit with us. Keith is running for State House. Last week we had Dan Francis, who's running for Congress. He did a great job. It was a great show. So welcome to the show, Keith. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about the race you're running for.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me tonight. A little bit about myself. I'm a 25-year educator. I'm not a politician. I had no desire to get into politics until I saw what was happening in our country with this woke revolution, what's going on in our schools, how the left is destroying our economy. And I have a 12-year-old son at home, and I finally said enough is enough. You know, it's time to stop talking and it's time to start doing. So I have a PhD in educational leadership, so I've been around for a while in the classroom in different kinds of roles, and I know the difference between education and indoctrination. And while a large majority of teachers are actually in there trying to do their best, we have woke legions, woke administrators, woke politicians who are sending down these edicts and are turning our education system into indoctrination centers. You know, so I said, I don't want my son to be growing up being radicalized into thinking that, you know, he's different than his friend who might have darker skin simply because of the color of their skin. I don't want him to think that science doesn't matter and all of a sudden there are an unlimited number of genders. Right. And it's just absolutely insane. So I decided to get in the race. I was originally a candidate in Congressional District 22.
Yes.
As you know, and but I saw there's some good candidates there, yes, you know, that I know I could support, right. And I saw that my district for the State House, Democratic incumbent Joe Casello, who has voted against Governor DeSantis' agenda 100%, I noticed that he didn't have any competition. Right. So if I didn't jump into the race, basically the voters of District 90 would have nobody to vote for. So I decided to get into the race, and I left the congressional race with some good people there, mm-hmm. And I decided to run for this because I just think 2022 is not your typical election.
No, it's not.
It's not about Republican versus Democrat or conservative versus liberal. It's not about right versus left. It's about right versus wrong. Right. And what's going on now is wrong. It's wrong for the country. It's wrong for the people. And we need as many constitutional conservatives in Tallahassee to make sure that we keep Florida free.
No, I agree. First of all, I want to commend you for switching races. In that congressional race, they're all good people, every one of them. Mm-hmm. Pete, Carrie, they're all good. They're all Rod, they're all good. But Dan, I think, is the guy that can win that race. He has the money, he has the character, he has the background. He's actually done things like he's taken a very large church in Manhattan who was going bankrupt, turning them around, making them profitable. We need people that understand finances, who can turn a nation who's $30 trillion in debt, get it back to a balanced budget, and turn this country and put it on the right path, because it's not. I mean, you know what happened today? They just passed this inflation, okay, which is a joke. But I gotta give credit to Joe Biden. I'm starting to really like this guy. He's going to hire 87,000 new IRS agents. I think that's amazing. We're going to take the audit rate from 1 in 400 to 1 in 50. Do you know what that's going to do to my business, Winning Tax Solutions? I'm going to be Mike Valardi millionaire. Everybody is going to now need me. Every bartender, every waiter, every waitress, they're now all going to get audited. It's going to be amazing how many people come under audit. The correspondence audit rate is going to go up tenfold. There's going to be IRS agents knocking on everybody's door. Every one of your neighbors is going to have an IRS agent knocking on the door looking for money. Because how did they fund this? They said the IRS is going to go out there, become bigger, and take more of your money. And we're going to use your money to fund our Green New Deal. And what does this Green New Deal do? It adds taxes to fossil fuels. So what's going to happen is, after the election, of course, your minimum tax for a gallon of gas, $5 to $6, just because of the new taxes they put in.
Right.
Now you're going to go and the Green New Deal package, of course, where you got to have all the batteries and right now you need rare earth minerals like cobalt to make these lithium batteries, right? So where does that come from? Well, it comes from the Congo, right? So it all gets mined. 90% gets mined in the Congo. When it gets mined in the Congo, it then goes to China to get refined. This is the biggest financial boon for China that they've gotten from the United States in the last 50 years, 100 years, whatever. There's going to be a parade for Joe Biden in China next week. I think it's in Beijing. I'm not sure what city they're going to have it in because they need a little time to plan. Because this helps the Chinese so much. Now, what does it do for the American people? It's going to guarantee that our floor for gasoline is not going to be, it's going to be $4 to $5 floor. Can't get below because of the new taxes that they added. Now you're going to rely more on wind and solar, give all the credits for that, but it's an unreliable source of energy. So it's going to kill coal. It's going to kill everything that we've relied upon. So China is more than happy because they refine all the cobalt that we need for these batteries. And, of course, there's going to be more IRS agents knocking on everybody's door. Most of the money that they put into this package are for auditors, people who go out, knock on doors, audit you, take a look at your tax return. The average American person now is their audit rate's going to be through the roof. Now, if you've ever been through an IRS audit, as you know, I was a criminal investigator for the IRS,
Right.
and I represent people at audits. They're going to look at everything. The American public is going to get bankrupted by the IRS, even if you didn't do anything wrong, because the cost of having to be represented before them, and because they're in the position now where they absolutely have to find more taxes for you to pay so that they could cover the cost for their salaries.
Well, first of all, when you talk about China getting richer, Biden's pretty much done that his entire administration, right? We saw in the very beginning, shuts down American energy, but he okays the pipeline for Russia to Germany, right? So let's help out Russia. He's helped out China. What is he doing? He's helping out Ukraine, right? He just said they're giving the biggest financial assistance or security assistance package to Ukraine, right? Well, how about an assistance package to the southern border? How about helping the American people instead of foreign governments, right? They say that they're going to get the corporations, right? They're going to get the corporations to pay, and anybody who has any clue about how this government has worked and how the economy has worked, the corporations aren't going to pay a dime more. That's going to be passed along to the consumers in price hikes. So what better way to help the American people when there's record inflation of over 9% than to jack up prices more? And they're doing the same with the gas, more prices, and it's part of their plan. They want, and Pete Buttigieg, however you say his name, he even said on TV that the more pain the American people have, the quicker they'll be willing to go to gas vehicles. So their strategy, exactly. Electric vehicles from gas, but their strategy is to literally hurt the American people into submission, to make their pain so overbearing that they have no choice but to comply.
This is why Joe Biden's one of the most popular presidents ever. I mean, think about this. In Saudi Arabia, he doubled their standard of living. They love him there. In China, he's increasing their standard tremendously. In Russia, they love him because he was able to fund the war. If you go around the world, Joe Biden has to be one of the most popular presidents anywhere in this world, except for the United States, where of course we now have to pay more for everything that we buy. Okay,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's unbelievable to me that we could be in this position. We were energy independent under Trump, and whether you like Trump or dislike Trump, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is we were paying $1.69 for gas.
Absolutely.
And now we're paying $4.69 for gas. And even when it comes down, it's a temporary thing because these taxes that are in this bill are going to knock the price of gas up right after the election. Come January 1st, you're going to see gasoline again go through the roof, hit $5, keep going, okay, to fund all this. And everyone's now going to have their local IRS agent knocking on their door. You're going to know them on a personal basis because there are going to be so many of them.
Right.
87,000 new IRS agents. I'm very thankful because winning tax solutions, people are going to have to call me. We're going to have to run specials to get people on board because everybody's going to need representation.
And the IRS is going to be the biggest agency in the country. It's going to have more agents than there are total in the Department of State, Border Patrol, and FBI combined. And when you look at it, how has the IRS functioned in the past? And look at what happened during the Obama. It was used to go after political opposition, as the FBI.
Well, you know, I've represented people for 11 years, and I go back to 1997, where Bill Clinton signed laws that you could actually fire 1203B laws where you could fire IRS agents for doing things that are unconscionable. And the reason for it, when they had hearings on Capitol Hill during that time, there was a couple of cases. One was there was a waitress who got fired by this particular restaurant, and she was really upset about it. So what did she do? To get back at the people, she lied to the IRS and said there was a double set of books. Well, the IRS went in there and put these people out of business, and there was never any double set of books. She just wanted to get back at them.
Right.
So people will use the IRS as their tool to do other people harm. I've seen it many, many times. When I worked there, I mean, I remember we'd have to, stand by the phone when the calls came in, and this guy calls up one day and he says, I want to turn in my wife. I said, okay, your wife. He goes, yeah, well, we're not married anymore. We just got divorced. I said, well, how long are you married to? Well, 10 years. Okay, what did she do? Well, she was she had a paper route and she didn't report the money, and she's a maid. She cleans houses and she pockets. I said, how long has she been doing this? About 10 years. So when you were married, she was doing that. Is that correct? Yes. So basically what you're telling me is you signed a false tax return and you want to tell me that you lied on your tax return too. Is that correct? Boom, he hung up the phone. All right. So the point is everybody wants to use the IRS as their pit bull. And now that you're going to have 87,000 new IRS agents, those calls that you would otherwise wouldn't even pay attention to are going to be looked at. And this means that everything you do is now going to be scrutinized. Your bank account. Now there's going to be reporting from Cash App, Venmo, right? Zelle. Everybody's going to be reporting to the IRS. It's going to make it much tougher on anybody and everybody. You're going to have to justify everything that came into any account, any place. And it's gonna make it so hard on the American people. Now, it's not enough that inflation has gone up 42%, or that gas is doubled what it was when Trump was in office. Now it's going to get much, much worse, because in order to fund this ridiculous bill, okay, that takes us from being energy independent with fossil fuels to making us more dependent on China, because if China does not process that cobalt, we can't have electric cars. It's over. It's over. And to do this with reconciliation, not one Republican vote, I think that's criminal. It's wrong. If you're going to pass such a massive spending bill, you need to have some sort of bipartisan support. And I think it's going to blow up. It's going to destroy the country. And I think anybody that has the ability to see down the road and see, I mean, these taxes don't get triggered until January. After
Of
the
course,
election,
of
right?
course.
Of course, because they want to try and hold on to power, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, gas is back to $6 all of a sudden.
And it's
How
just
did that
just
happen?
like the tapping into the reserves
Right.
to lower prices. That's going to end magically in October,
Right.
before the election.
And you know, he was selling our strategic oil to China. Now, what's wrong with that picture?
He seems to have an affinity for China.
He really does. Now, I know that I'm sure he hasn't been involved in anything like his son has, but his son is tied in with him pretty well. I mean,
No, listen, the big guy has said numerous times he's had nothing to do with that. He's known nothing about
nothing.
about
No,
those
of course,
issues.
nothing, yeah.
Can I just getting back to what you're talking about? I think one of the things that I want people to understand is that we like to look at this and think, wow, how incompetent are they? How has this happened? But it's not about incompetence. This is their plan, okay? Like I said with Buttigieg before, their plan is to make gasoline so expensive that people have no choice but to go to electric vehicles.
Right.
You know, their plan is to keep that southern border open to bring in as many potential Democrat voters as possible. That's why they want amnesty for everyone, a couple more million voters who are going to owe them for their citizenship, you know, and are going to be a voting bloc.
Right.
So this is, and the woke stuff in the schools, that's all about building this radical leftist army from the future, this indoctrination. I mean, I see it all the time with kids coming out of college, very intelligent kids whose arguments make no sense when you talk to them about politics or economics because it's simply what they've been spoon-fed.
Well, you know, the Democrats need poorer voters, right? I mean, that's who they cater to, right? Child care credit, earned income tax, all the tax code is geared, right? So by making everyone poorer, they look at they're gonna increase their voter base. The problem with that is people don't like to be made poorer, and I don't think they're gonna like having the IRS come after them more aggressively than ever before. But again, it's good for my business because that's what I do is represent people who do have IRS issues.
And I'm sorry, but what you said before is the exact point of it. They're going to put out there what they want the people to hear. The media is going to carry it. So the media, the people are going to see inflation reduction. They're going to see all these good things. They're not going to see what's hidden in the package, and they're not going to see any of the negative effects until after the election. So what they're hoping is that they can pull, again, as they always do, pull the wool over the voters' eyes, right, and get them to go in there and support them. It's criminal the way the Democratic Party lies to the American people, tricks the American people, and they have no intention of ever honoring any of their promises. You know, like with Manchin and fossil fuels. They're not going to honor that.
No, and that's not in the bill. I mean, that was something that was verbally promised.
We
to
promised
Manchin.
to do it in the future,
right? But it's not written in the bill. It won't happen.
No, never
and that's why when we come back to the Congress now. I mean, the way Florida was redistricted, we should pick up 3 congressional seats. And that should be enough to change the demographic Congress just alone because they only have a 5-seat majority. Right. So we take 3, they lose 3, all of a sudden we're up 1. But nationally, and that's why, you know, when you look at these congressional races, and again, I commend you for what you did because I look at the field and I like everybody that's in the field. But the only person that could really win this race is Dan Francis because he's the one that has the money. He has the experience. He has the back. I mean, Dick Morris got behind him. Now, Dick Morris is the guy that engineered Bill Clinton's political comeback. Okay, Mayor Giuliani, who's the guy that changed New York City, is behind him. So all these people that know him are getting behind him and saying, hey, he has the experience, he has the knowledge, and most importantly, he has the money. You can't win a congressional campaign unless you have at least $1 million. And the reason for it is simple. People need name recognition. They need to know who you are. Well, you got about 700,000 constituents. How are they going to, if they don't know who you are, so they're not going to vote for you. So they're going to vote for the name they recognize. Lois Franco, oh, let's vote for her. Doesn't matter how bad she is. Doesn't matter. She's hardly in Washington anymore. She's basically in her 70s and somewhat retired and just waiting to get voted out of office. The fact is that we have to have somebody that can get their name out there, who can get their message out there. And Dan's message is simple. We're gonna curb this inflation. He's a big believer in term limits. He knows how to turn around a losing entity like that big church in New York and Manhattan that he did. And we need to do that for the country. We need a balanced budget amendment. We need to cut the size of government, and we need to get rid of the deficit. Not only the deficit, we need to get rid of the debt. And if we don't start cutting into the debt, it's over. And the way Joe Biden is handling it is by, let's grow the IRS, pay these guys money to go out there and knock on doors and take your money. So the way they get their salary paid is by stealing it from you, the little guy.
Right.
And that to me is very problematic. And as much as I love the IRS because I work for them and they've paid my salary and now my pension, I don't think it's the right way to go.
Not at all.
No, I don't think it's the right way to go. And it's going to hurt a lot of people who are struggling now with this inflation. Okay? So, well, listen, that's all we have time. We're going to a commercial break. We got a hard break. And we got Keith Feit with us, and we'll be back.
Is suffering from inflation and high costs caused by Lois Frankel's reckless policies. Republican Dan Franzese is clearly your best choice for Congress. Dan is a successful businessman who understands finance and economics. He's not a politician. Dan grew up blue collar and knows how tough inflation is on working families. Dan Franzese will go to Washington and fight the liberals who are killing us with inflation. Dan Franzese for Congress.
I'm Dan Franzese, and I approve this message.
Text alert! Text alert!
I was receiving letter after letter from the IRS.
I got Mike Valardi on the phone and I said, Mike, I got a problem.
He took the pressure off my shoulders.
He just made me feel like I had Superman on my side.
Trust me, he's the man to go to.
IRS problems? I'm Mike Vilardi, enrolled agent. I can help. My company, Winning Tax Solutions, has always gotten our clients the best possible results. Visit us at winningtaxsolutions.com or call us today.
You've been watching the Political Power Hour with Mike Vilardi. For more information, email us at mikevilardi@gmail.com. That's Vilardi with one L. And now, back to the show.
Back. Keith, let's talk about education. Let's go back and talk about your background. You wrote like 9 books.
I've written a few, yeah.
And you're a PhD.
Yes.
Yep. And so you're actually an educator, and you are basically first line defense in the school system. And let's talk about critical race theory and what they're trying to do to our kids.
Well, I think we are in a second war for independence against a government that's much more tyrannical than the founding fathers faced, right? They built a country, and we're trying to save the country. We're trying to reinvigorate the country into what they envisioned. Education, our schools, that's the front line, right? The future of our country is going to be decided based on what happens in our school systems. And we have a situation where, once again, the left is trying to fool the American people. Oh, we're not teaching critical race theory. Critical race theory is not in our schools at all. Well, they're calling it diversity, equity, and inclusion. What a joke. All right, when you look at the Palm Beach County School District equity statement, they talk about breaking down racist institutions. Well, what we've seen in other districts across the country, we've seen in Oregon, California, we've seen what are those racist institutions? Honors programs, advanced placement programs, right? So, graduation requirements. In Oregon, they're no longer requiring graduation requirements. They're teaching their teachers or training their teachers to treat their minority students differently. They don't have to turn in homework. They're not going to get in trouble for not turning in homework. They're not going to be consequences for not going to school. Their behavior is being excused. That if that's not racism right there, I'm not sure what is.
Well, explain to me 2 things. What you're basically saying, if I'm correct, is they're dumbing down our children.
Absolutely. Instead of, and I've spoken to some Black and Hispanic parents who are absolutely disgusted that the left continues to oppress those communities with what President Bush said was the soft bigotry of low expectations. Well, in other words, your people have been oppressed
Right.
for centuries, so you are not capable of rising to the challenge. Right. That is the most despicably racist thing. That whole mental mindset is absolutely disgraceful.
Could you explain to me how the minorities make up 80% of the population? Right?
I can't.
I mean, 80% of the population are considered minorities. Well, to me, that would be the majority, but I
Right.
guess it's the new math, right?
Right.
I mean, you take just women alone, that's 50%, right? Then you got Hispanics, blacks, Asians. You're up to over 80% of the population considered minorities. Well, that's the majority.
Right. Well, this is all this intersectional stuff that they're trying to do is as many boxes as you can check off. That's how much you're owed by our government. Right. So if you can check off that you're a female and you're black and you are lesbian or a transgender or, as many of those boxes you can check off, you're owed more.
Well, let me ask you a question. How about if you're a white guy who identifies as a black female?
Well, that's a pretty good question, and I don't know how you would answer that. I guess the whole thing would be: are you liberal or conservative? Because we've seen how Justice Thomas has been treated, how Larry Elder's been treated. So it all depends on not only your race and your gender, but your ideology.
Yeah, that's really what it's about.
You look at Sarah Palin and how she was treated because she's a conservative woman. It doesn't matter if she's a woman. Right. They wouldn't have been celebrating. If she was the first female vice president, they would not have been celebrating it the way they did with Kamala Harris. Right. And so our kids in these schools, they're growing up, and instead of focusing on reading, writing, science, developing the skills to help these kids be successful after school, right? We have radical politicians, radical district personnel, radical administrators, and there are some radical teachers. Again, most teachers, I think, do the best job they possibly can in educating the youth, but they are putting ideology, they're putting power ahead of what's best for the student. And I think we need to start worrying about students' futures more than failing schools. We need to empower parents to make the best decisions for their children and take power away from the corrupt teachers' unions. Okay, we saw with COVID, the teachers' unions wanted to keep those schools closed. Why? They just want power. They want control. They want the power. They don't have the students' best interests at heart. And, if you go onto my website, you'll see that I talk about education a lot, or I write about education a lot on there. And I think what we need is universal school choice. Mm-hmm. Forget just expansion. Universal school choice. Every child, regardless of their zip code, regardless of their race, right, regardless of the jobs their parents have, okay, deserves the same educational opportunities. And the only way to get that educational equality is to have universal school choice, where the parents can take the money and funding portability, where the money follows the kid, not the system, and empower those parents to say, this is the best school for my child, that's where my kid is going to go. And because if we think about it, you want to talk about wealth, class warfare that the left loves to talk about, right? Wealthy people can send their child to any school.
Now, that's like saying we should play fair in the sandbox. There's a certain political party that doesn't want to play fair. They want to maintain power.
Absolutely.
And it's about maintaining power. That's really what it's about.
100%.
Look at the crime in these major cities now. Now, I get the New York Post because I'm a Yankee fan, And the city is a nightmare. New York City is a nightmare. I mean, they have gun violence is up, murders, robberies up, rapes are up. Every crime statistic is through the roof.
Absolutely.
Cops are bailing. They're not waiting for retirement. They're just handing in the shield saying, I'm going to go do something else.
Right.
So we look at these policies and we see nightmare after nightmare. Look at San Francisco. I was in San Francisco in 1984. Beautiful city.
Beautiful.
I would not go to San Francisco today.
No.
homeless on the sidewalks in tents. How do you allow that? And how do you keep voting in that same congressperson who allows that to happen and does nothing for the poor? I mean, it's just, that's why Congress has to change.
Absolutely. And you mentioned before term limits. Congressional term limits has to be right at the top of the list, because what we have is a group of entrenched professional politicians who are making their decisions, making their votes based on their best interest and the best interest of the special interests that pay for them to stay in power.
Right.
They're not worried about the people. So we need to get them out, and we need to get new people in there who are going to represent the people. Now, you're talking about crime. And I saw something today, I think it was 57% rise in New York City in terms of those crimes. And it's just like with guns. And if I can go to the Second Amendment for a minute.
Sure.
And anytime anything happens with a gun, the left wants to talk about banning the guns. They want to talk against the Second Amendment, right? Yeah. Now, what they're not talking about is those are symptoms, right? What's the underlying cause? And the underlying cause, right? We see guns have been around forever in our country, since the start of our country. And it wasn't until the 1960s that these mass shootings started happening. And they've gotten more prevalent, even though there's still not many of them. It seems like there's one happening every week because of they're being sensationalized, right? But what we're not talking about, what's changed over that period of time? What's changed is our culture, right?
Yes.
There is a total abdication of accountability. We don't hold people accountable for their actions, right? People know that in San Francisco, if they go into a store, they can steal $999 worth of stuff and walk on out, and there's no accountability, right?
Yes.
Even if you commit a violent crime, you're out on the street with this bail reform, you're out on the street the next day. Right? So there's no accountability. Secondly, mental health, right? Mental health. We have 16, 17-year-olds in these mass shootings, right? Well, they didn't just start having problems at 16 or 17, right? But I'm going to tell you a problem right now that I've seen happening is if you try to get a 12 or a 13-year-old in for a psychiatric evaluation to see what's wrong and how you can best help them, you're going to find out that it's nearly impossible. Number one, they'll be told, "Oh, we don't deal with kids under 16." Well, that's brilliant because by the time they get to 16, they're already, ignited. They're already ready to go off. Number two, "Oh yeah, we do, but we don't accept insurance." How many average working Americans can afford thousands of dollars for an evaluation of their child just to find out what's wrong? Then to spend the thousands of dollars to help treat them.
Well,
right?
that's the same number of Americans that are going to be able to afford somebody to protect them from the IRS.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Who's going to be knocking on your door
exactly.
very soon.
A very, very small amount. So, don't start crying about guns if you're not willing to tackle the underlying causes of the problem we have. Because I'm not sure, I haven't researched this, but I'm willing to say that I'm confident that a gun has never killed a person without a person pulling a trigger, whether willfully, knowingly, accidentally, right? Guns just don't go off.
My guns have been very well behaved for the last 30 years, as a matter of fact.
I guess you're lucky because it seems to me the left wants us to think that guns are the problem. Like, oh, somebody gets shot with a gun, sue the manufacturer. Are we going to start suing cars when people get into accidents? Car companies, car manufacturers when people get into auto accidents? Are we going to start suing baseball bat companies if somebody gets hit with a baseball bat?
When I ran for Congress, I would read from George Washington's speech, which is right here. Okay, and this shows us. You said the underlying cause. I want to read what George Washington said on the congressional floor on October 3rd of 1789. Okay. Now, a lot of people are too young to remember this speech, and personally, I wasn't there myself. Okay. But we have in the congressional record, so I'm able to read it.
Biden might have been there.
Yes, he might. He is the exception to the rule. It says this: Thanksgiving Day, 1789. by the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. Here's what it says. Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, to be grateful for His benefits, and humbly to implore His protection and favor. And whereas both houses of Congress have, by their joint committee, requested me to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts and many signal favors of Almighty God, especially by affording them an opportunity peaceably to establish a form of government for their safety and happiness. Now, therefore, I do recommend and assign Thursday, the 26th day of November next, to be devoted by the people of these states to the service of that great and glorious being who is the beneficial author of all the good that was, that is, and that will be, that we may then all unite in rendering unto Him our sincere and humble thanks for His kind care and protection of the people of this country previous to their becoming a nation. And it goes on for another 2 paragraphs. My point is, now that's where Thanksgiving originated, with George Washington making this proclamation in every November to this year and next year and every year since 1789, people have celebrated Thanksgiving, but I don't think they recognize how much emphasis was put on giving God the glory. And where he says it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey His will, and to be grateful for His benefits. We forget there's no consciousness of God. There's no talk of God. There's
No, and
there's no.
our whole society is based on the 10 Commandments, right? Everything about our laws, it's based on the 10 Commandments, and that is one of the biggest problems, is that we are losing our love of God, reliance on God. We're losing our faith.
Yeah.
And that's what the left wants. Their only God is big government.
Yes.
You know, that's the altar they worship at.
Yep.
And for people, and it's just like in when you look in Marxist nations, communist nations, right? Religion is the first thing they attack.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
They don't want people to have that support. They don't want people to have that hope. They want to crush people, demoralize people right off the bat, and that's what the left wants to do here as well.
You're right, and this is the foundation. This is the building blocks that this country was built upon.
Absolutely.
Godly principles. And now they're tearing that down. So I think we have here right now what's called a Red Sea moment, where the Democrats now have passed this bill. They're hanging on to power. Things are going down the tubes. If we don't have an act of God, if we don't have some miracle, if for some reason the election, because there's another monkeypox or COVID-19 and they keep the House, keep the Senate,
We're done.
keep the presidency, I don't think this country is pretty much done, because what's going to happen now that this bill is passed, 2 things are going to happen in January. One is the price of gas is going to spike. Okay, that means diesel fuel is going to go through the roof. Inflation is going to go up another 20-30% because of these new taxes that were put on fossil fuels to get everybody off of them. Okay, and then you're going to have your friendly IRS agent. Everyone's going to have their own IRS agent assigned to them. All right, and come knock on your door, taking your money, looking at your bank accounts, every Cash App transaction. If you can't account for everything you did, you're going to have to pay tax. They're going to make that additional taxable income. You're going to get assessed. Once you get the assessment, they're then going to hit you with a penalty for failure to pay, and then they're going to hit you with interest, and they're going to go back. So you could have a $3,000 tax bill that becomes a $6,000 tax bill. And now, if you don't come up with that $6,000, they put you on a payment plan. When you pay interest and you continue to pay interest, you never get out of that hole. And now you're beholden to the government, always in debt to them. It's going to make even the wealthy poor.
Absolutely, and that's what That's what they've done to minority communities.
Yeah.
They have kept them in this system of welfare, the system of government dependency, and generations of these family members have had no hope.
Right. No hope.
Right? It's been, I need the government to survive.
Right.
And it's about time that these communities, and I think maybe they're starting to wake up, understand that we want to empower them.
Yes. And we have to go to a hard break, a commercial break. We'll be back with Feit, who's running for State House Rep, in a minute.
Text alert! Text alert! I was receiving letter after letter from the IRS.
I got Mike Valardi on the phone and I said, Mike, I got a problem.
He took the pressure off my shoulders.
He just made me feel like I had Superman on my side.
Trust me, he's the man to go to.
IRS problems? I'm Mike Vilardi, enrolled agent. I can help. My company, Winning Tax Solutions, has always gotten our clients the best possible results. Visit us at winningtaxsolutions.com or call us today.
If your family is suffering from inflation and high costs caused by Lois Frankel's reckless policies, Republican Dan Franzese is clearly your best choice for Congress. Dan is a successful businessman who understands finance and economics. He's not a politician. Dan grew up blue collar and knows how tough inflation is on working families. Dan Franzese will go to Washington and fight the liberals who are killing us with inflation. Dan Franzese for Congress.
I'm Dan Franzese, and I approve this message.
You've been watching the Political Power Hour with Mike Vilardi. For more information, email us at mikevilardi@gmail.com. That's Vilardi with one L. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back. Well, Keith, you've been out hitting the campaign trail, and why don't you tell us about what the people are saying?
Well, I've been out there knocking on doors with my volunteers, and we've gotten to talk to a lot of voters, and we've spoken to a lot of NPA voters, and we've even spoken to a bunch of Democrat voters who are so disheartened with what's going on. They do not want their kids being indoctrinated in schools. There has been such an outcry from these people about what's going on in our schools, about their kids' futures. There's such concern that their children are going to have less opportunities than they had, that their children are not going to be able to chase the American dream that everybody for centuries has come here to chase. And that's been an over and over again thing that we've heard from across the political spectrum, is the unhappiness with what's going on with our schools. So before I move on, if I can, please, everybody, make sure August 23rd is the school board election. And if you care about our children, if you care about their future, if you care about what's going on in our schools and you want to change it, please get to the polls and vote for school board. I know in District 4, Angelique Contreras has my complete support, and I hope that everybody in District 4 goes out there and votes for her.
Writing. Connor.
There's Kristen Stevenson and Connor Frontera in District 3,
right.
both terrific candidates.
Right.
There's Chris Prasad in District 7, again, great guy. And then there's three conservatives running in District 6, Amanda Silvestri and Jen Showalter,
Right.
and Jeff Browning. So we got to get these woke radicals out of the school board. Another thing I hear all the time, obviously, and this is a surprising one. So many people have told me, I don't like President Trump, but I liked when he was president.
Right.
Right? I liked being able to put gas in my car.
Yes.
I liked being able to put food on my table. And so many people have said, I did not like the way Trump tweeted, or I did not like the way President Trump spoke, but I liked President Trump's policies.
He's a businessman. Now, breaking news, the FBI is apparently raiding Mar-a-Lago. Okay, now from Merrick Garland to actually go after a former president, that's appalling. This guy's been very political.
Absolutely.
From the time he was appointed, more so than anybody I've ever seen. Even than the people of President Obama put in, even more so than Eric Holder. Right, exactly.
That's saying a lot.
So I think this is, and we're going to find out more about it, but I think this is nothing more than a way to stop him from running in 2024.
Absolutely.
Because people, whether you liked him or not, his policies worked. $1.69 gas was phenomenal. The highest stock market ever was phenomenal. Now technically we're in a recession.
We're in a
right?
recession. Absolutely.
And the stock market's selling off. People are losing their 401ks. They're becoming poorer. Now we're going to have guaranteed higher gas prices because of these additional taxes that were just passed. And you're going to have your friendly IRS agent. Of course, everyone's going to have their own IRS agent knocking on their door, making sure that they're on the the automatic audit program. They get looked at every year. Which when I was an employee, they did that, which was fine. But you expect that because you're an employee. So they have to. You have to be held to a higher standard. So I always paid above and beyond what was necessary because I worked there, and that's fine. But for the average American, that's going to be horrible because they're going to have to account for every gift that their Aunt Helen gave them, their Uncle Bill, their. Okay, well that was for my birthday, and otherwise you're going to be paying tax on this stuff.
Absolutely, and anybody who thinks that it's going to stop with Donald Trump, they're going to come after anybody who has been a supporter of President Trump or a supporter of Republican policies. Right. And it's just it's going to be insane. Right. It's going to be insane. And one of the reasons it's so important to take back the House. Is if the Democrats win full control of the Senate and add votes, they will kill the filibuster. They will pack the Supreme Court with activist judges. Yeah. They will do everything. They will have carte blanche. If they win control of the Senate and they keep the House, our country is done.
Well, that's why it's so important that the Democrats don't want voter ID. Because in 1865, they didn't have driver's licenses. So when you mail in your ballot, and you might be, just because you've died doesn't mean you shouldn't have the opportunity to. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But no, this is a critical time for our nation, and it's appalling to me that the political party that's in control will allow a former president to be indicted. This has never happened before. We don't know what the indictment's about, but for them to actually go and raid his house is unprecedented. And I think it's all to, just like the January 6th hearings, to keep him from running in 2024.
Absolutely. And the left is waging a war. I mean, they're waging a war on parents. They're waging a war on wealth. Yeah. Right. And they're waging a war on patriotism. And just look, we just saw in the hearings, Ted Cruz pointed out that the FBI considers symbols of patriotic heritage symbols of extremism. And, the Betsy Ross flag. Someone who has the Betsy Ross flag is an extremist. The Gadsden flag, don't tread on me. So... And it's crazy because as I walk around and you canvass and you see the American flags, it's almost like what kind of house that is. Because the left is trying to portray anybody who patriotically waves that flag, salutes that flag, as an extremist. Right? And it's terrible. I mean, when I was growing up, you walk down the street, there were flags everywhere. Didn't matter if you were Republican, Democrat, none of that mattered. Everybody loved the country. Right? Now we literally have a big segment of the country trying to undermine it from within, trying to destroy the country, trying to destroy anybody who loves their country. And, I got told by a student when we had to mask, I wore a patriotic American flag mask, and I got called. Can you? You know what I got called?
No.
I got called a racist. Wow. I got called a racist because I wore the flag.
Well, that comes from page 47 of the Communist Manifesto, and it's true. If you can't argue the issues, you then destroy the messenger.
Right.
And you vilify the messenger by calling him names. And that's exactly what they do. You're a homophobe. You're a racist. You're this. You're a bigot. You're that. You're another thing.
All they have.
And because you cannot win on issues. And when we look at the issues, crime, economics, it seems that when there's Republican governors, their states tend to do better. There's not a whole lot of people going, I can't wait to get back to New York. Or let me get back to California. If I could only go back to... I mean, Newsom's putting out commercials inviting Floridians to go to California.
For freedom.
Okay? And do you want to really walk those streets where there's tents and you smell urine and there's... In New York City, they put up these temporary sheds, okay? And now people are having sex in them. And the New York Post just had an article about it, all right? And they're filled with urine and they're stenching up the city. And the violence is out of control. And the cops are leaving. They don't want to be there. They defunded the police. Thank you, Bill de Blasio. Okay, great job.
I think it was about $1 billion they took.
It was $1 billion, yes. And now, why do you want to be a cop? Go to work and get shot at? Can't you arrest somebody, they get out?
Then you're vilified on TV for doing your job.
We've destroyed the foundation. Like, thou shalt not steal? Well, you can steal up to $1,000, but no more. And now these stores are going out of business.
The chains
in the
are
big
moving out.
cities.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a
Absolutely.
problem.
And,
It's a real big problem.
and we're lucky down here in Florida so far that, we have Governor DeSantis and the Republican legislature has passed some good legislation, but we're not done. We're not done. When we talk about schools, the parental right laws, which my opponent Joe Casello opposed as the Don't Say Gay bill, that's a great start. Banning CRT is a great start. But we have to actually make sure that it is mandated that these schools have unbiased curricula, that they're being taught how to think, not told what to think, right? That they're being trained to think independently, because they're not. And that has to be codified. It has to be statute that it's mandated. We can't rely on individual district superintendents who are being hired these days based on their level of wokeness to do what's right. And my platform in running, education's a big issue, obviously. I want to empower parents. I want to empower parents, and I want to put the students first. Get the teachers' unions out of there. I'd like an education marketplace where all schools are a part of the marketplace and the parents get to choose where they go. Not public, private, charter. Everybody's together. Everybody's in one massive marketplace where the parents get to send their kids to the school that best meets their needs. We talk about immigration. Isn't it funny how now in New York and Washington, D.C., the sanctuary cities are now saying that illegal immigration is horrific?
Right.
So when it happens in Arizona and Texas and Florida, far away from their liberal hellholes, it's great. It's wonderful. We should be open to immigrants. But when it happens, when they get them shipped to them, now Greg Abbott is this horrible person for sending immigrants their way. So it's a problem now because it's happening to them. That's liberalism. That's the left hypocrisy at its finest. And in terms of crime, we talked about it. We need to put more funding into our law enforcement. We need to provide them with the best equipment. And especially, who's getting hurt the most? It's these minority neighborhoods where most of the crime's happening. So everybody that the Democrat Party is supposed to stand up for, they are hurting by their policies. Of course, mandates. There should never be a government mandate on what a person puts into their body. Whether you want the vaccine or not, that's a personal choice. And,
now, I got to stop you there. What do you think of the fact that Joe Biden has gotten vaccinated twice, 2 boosters, and gotten COVID twice, maybe 3 times already?
Well, I will say that I have been vaccinated, and I had a booster, and I will not take another shot.
Okay.
I will not take another shot.
Okay.
And I did not get COVID until well after
Right.
I was vaccinated. And a lot of the people I know that have gotten COVID have been vaccinated.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You know, so we were lied to so much, and that's again that's the criminality
So
of it.
we have a vaccine that doesn't stop you from getting the disease. Well, could you imagine if that happened with polio? What would be the point of taking the vaccine?
Right,
What's the point of taking the flu shot if you're going to get the flu anyway?
right.
And yet they're pushing this stuff, and there's side effects. I mean, I personally know 2 people that died shortly after getting vaccinated. One was a good friend of mine who I was on the drug task force with, and he got the second Pfizer shot, and the next morning he never woke up. And another one was a dear friend of mine who was my guy I idolized. He was my wrestling coach in junior high school, and he took the booster shot and got myocarditis, and he knew he was dying. He could feel it in his heart, and he passed away.
And that's why health freedom's important. You know,
Yeah, health
people
freedom
should
is
have the option. They shouldn't be mandated. It should be between an individual and their doctor to decide. You know, mandates. I'm 100% supporter of health freedom. I don't personally care if somebody's vaccinated or not vaccinated. It's their decision.
Well, I mean, my son lost his job at a hospital in New York because he wouldn't get the vaccine.
Shouldn't be.
Now, thankfully, he ended up doubling his salary and getting a job he really likes. So it worked out for him. But that should never happen. We should have freedom. We've lost. If you talk about my body, my choice, okay? What happened to with the vaccine was your body, your choice when there's no evidence that if you're vaccinated, you're any better off than if you're not.
Right.
And in Ireland, they're putting up signs saying that some of the side effects of the vaccine, the last side effect, sudden death. Would you take a vaccine whose side effect is sudden death?
No, that would definitely cause me to think twice.
I mean, let me take a chance with COVID, right? Because if I sudden death, it's extreme.
Absolutely.
It is extreme. So we touch on stuff here in this show that probably other people won't touch, but that's what makes us different, and that's what sets us apart. Is we're not afraid to address the hot topics and the top issues, and you know we have a huge primary day on the 23rd.
Absolutely.
I know you don't have a primary, but it's so important that we get the right people in, and I so want to see Lois Frankel unseated.
Absolutely.
Okay, and
for the good of the country.
For the good of the country. And I know Dan has the resources to do these. He's the temperament. He has the experience, and I'm really hoping that happens here. Because if we could turn this district, which is it's a D9 district, we could sweep the country in a huge way. And that's absolutely necessary. I mean, one of the things that I hit on when I ran was the Social Security. On August 14th, 1935, when FDR passed that act, there were 3 provisions that have all been changed. Okay? Number 1, any Social Security tax that was taken couldn't be taxed for federal tax purposes. That's changed. Now they take $10,000 if you make 100. They tax you on the 100 even though you saw 90. Well, that's totally wrong. That's double taxation. They can make everybody poor. Just tax them on one end and then tax them again on the same thing, and you're poor.
Right.
The second thing is FDR said it has to be tax-free when you receive it. Now they tax the benefit up to 85%. You make any other, they tax your benefit 85%. That's your money coming back to you.
Right.
And third and most important thing, this change under Johnson, was that it was in a separate trust fund. So it was allocated to it. Now it's in the general fund, and we're done. We're done. Keith, we're coming to the end of our show. We only have a couple of minutes left. I want you to tell our audience why you were the best candidate, why you'd be the best state house rep, and why they need to vote for you come November.
Well, as we see how things are right now, my opponent, Joe Casello, has been in the state house for the past 4 years. And what has he done to address the rising cost of living? Property insurance. We desperately need property insurance reform. Tax reform. We need to make it more livable more cost effective for people to live here in Florida. We need to build more homes so the cost of homes come down, right? We're building up all this commercial industry, but where are people going to live? I haven't seen anything from that. Joe Casello voted against parental rights in education, against expanding school choice, against banning CRT in our schools. So if you want someone who's going to fight for your children, who's going to fight for their future, and to make sure that they're educated, not indoctrinated, I am the only candidate on the ballot in District 90 that'll do that. The same goes for the legal immigration. It goes for a crime. I back the blue 100%. Like I said earlier, I want more funding, not less funding for them. I want to make our communities safer for everyone. I'm totally against mandates. The only thing, as I'm going through all this legislation, that I find that Joe Casello's for is he's for the unconstitutional mandates. So I prefer freedom for the people. He prefers government control of your lives. So in terms of let's keep Florida free, I am the freedom candidate. I'm the candidate for education, not indoctrination. And I am the candidate for the Constitution and to represent the people.
Well, Keith, thanks for being on the show, The Political Power Hour with Mike Vilardi, and thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you taking the time to see our show. Until next week, have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you for watching The Political Power Hour with your host, Michael Vilardi. If you would like to see a particular candidate on our show, please email us at michaelvilardi@gmail.com. That's one L in Vilardi. We will see you next week.